we do have a wall of shame for those ideas that didn't quite make it through to production, and that's encouraged. It's actually encouraged at Dohmann. If somebody has an idea, doesn't matter how far-fetched it is, let's talk about it, let's investigate it, because it could be the seed of something really, really innovative. I love innovation.
Welcome to StereoNET. We're here in Melbourne at the StereoNET Hi-Fi and AV show, and I'm pleased to be sitting next to Mark Dohmann from Dohmann Audio. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
Very good.
That's good.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah.
Lovely. Mark, we're welcoming most of our guests from overseas to Australia here for the show, but you're a Melbourne boy. You're born and raised here.
Born and raised. Yeah.
Fantastic. And could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in hi-fi?
Interesting question. Home environment. Music was a big part of the home. My mother was very interested in classical and opera, and believe it or not, country music. Charlie Pride was Johnny Cash. Those sorts of things were constantly playing. We had a small system. My father was a flight engineer, did a lot of travel. He managed to bring back some, it was sharp, quadraphonic system with a good turntable, and it would have been a moving magnet or possibly even a ceramic on it, I'm not sure. But yeah, played records, and we were allowed to play records. We were allowed to use the table from an early age. So yeah, formative period of music in the home, really, and concerts. Mum used to drag us out to concerts, classical music. I didn't quite get it at the early age, and then now I realise how important that was. Very important to introduce your children, if you can, to live music. So yeah, that was music was part of the home.
Yeah, it's very healthy. Yeah, and you found your passion in turntables then, as it turns out.
That's interesting. A family friend had an old 78 wind-up portable record player, and it turns out door-to-door salespeople used to carry these in the 1920s and even the 30s, and they would play the Kelvinator ad to the lady of the house. They'd knock on the door and they'd open the record player up and they'd wind it up and they'd drop the needle and it would play the ad for a refrigerator or whatever that they were selling at the time. So this thing was broken, and somehow, I think it was my dad that gave it to me and said, "Here, fix this." And not in that way, but here, hey, have some fun and take it apart, see how it works. And it turns out it was the spring that was broken, and I nearly decapitated myself when I hammered with the screwdriver the can that held the wind-up spring, and it let fly. Thus realising that the stored energy is stored for a long time. So yeah, I gradually learned how to fix that up with my dad's help, and then I remember searching and hunting down the little tin needle that went with it, and they were still able to be procured back then. This would have been 1978.
Sure.
And I dropped the needle in the groove, and all of a sudden this voice came out of it, and I was just like, wow. It was just fascinating. I played around with crystal sets. Dad gave me a crystal set, and we used to tape wires to the aluminium window frames and try and pick up remote radio stations. Then we had a shortwave radio, ham radio. We're monkeying around listening into Russian folk songs being broadcast from somewhere over the waves. So yeah, it was just a sort of a techie upbringing, if I could use that term.
No, interesting. So, Mark, how did you work out how to make turntables sound good?
Oh, this is interesting. I probably that going to the live concerts, hearing what musicians sounded like in live. I think what that does is it gives you a feeling and a yearning for uncompression and open sound and clarity and detail and impact and dynamics and those, and low noise, of course. So with record players playing the needles, you get your surface noise, of course, pops, crackles. You know, why bother with vinyl? I can't handle the scratches and pops and crackles. But if you could fix that by static removal and cleaning the record, and all of a sudden you occasionally get this quiet track and you'd go, oh, this is what it sounds like without those noises. And then, of course, being introduced to people who were already on the journey of high fidelity. At a young age, teenage years, somebody introduced me to a friend who had a big system, an expensive at the time. It was an Ariston RD11S with the SME 4 and a Shure V15 Type 5. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow. So that's way better than the Sharp at home. So it sort of started this journey of there's obviously better. How do I get there? How do I make my records sound like that? And not having the funds as a young lad, but having access to an incredible workshop at the airline, I was able to build and create and experiment and try and donor parts from discarded Commonwealth idler tables. You know, there were so many people getting out of those old school tables into the new ones that were available on the market. And so they didn't have the value. They do now. Try and sell a Commonwealth turntable today, it's worth a fortune. So, yeah, it was just that general tinkering and playing, and you were part of that journey. You were breaking things apart, resoldering and wiring up turntable engines for the early Dohmann and Gusew continuums. So Mark's actually part of that whole process in the early 80s. Yeah, so you know what I was doing.
Yeah, very pleasant memories, I got to say.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
Saved the money on alcohol and going out.
Yep.
And pumped it all into making records and
put it into your system.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously turntable engineering, look, it's come a long way. You know, it's changed from those early sort of idler wheel type turntables to more modern manufacturing processes and technology and so on. So what makes Dohmann turntables unique?
I think we do a lot of research, and we try to recruit solutions and technologies from outside the world of record players. There's a lot of development going on in industry, and the people who are doing those developments often don't understand that it can have an application in analog information retrieval. So I guess our role is to try and steer that recruitment to access those technologies and then see how they fit and integrate them into making records. So that's materials research, that's motion control systems, that's metallurgy. Yeah, just I'd say a very strong focus on materials research, and then using software to analyse and predict vibration modes within the system. And one of our research relationships is with a company called Minus K out of California, who build an isolation system that's used under electron microscopes and atomic force microscopes. And if it works for them, which we've seen it work, you literally see the images cleaning up before they take the shot of the tiny atom-sized item that they're trying to look at, the logic for us was, well, if it works for them, it can work for a needle in a groove, which is actually able to trace up to a wavelength of light, ultraviolet light, in the nanometer range. So it's again a logical acquisition of technology used in another field, which is applied to record players.
Thank you. So you use terminology within your turntables like micro-signal architecture and resonance suppression architecture. Could you perhaps expand on those terms and
sure.
what they mean?
I mean, it's MSA. I mean, we live in a world of acronyms these days. When you buy a car, I mean, just look at the dashboard, all those little lights and so on, and you often say, what does that do? And they have a TLA, a three-letter acronym at it. So we decided to try and to simplify the understanding of what we're doing into, say, micro-signal architecture. So what we're trying to do is design the whole turntable architecture to protect the microscopic signals. That's micro-signal architecture. That means everything on that table that we as a team design is focused on that goal. Because if we take care of that, then the music comes out by its very nature. It's there. All we've got to do is move the stuff that's interfering with it out of the way. So resonance suppression architecture, RSA. So it actually is within the microsignal architecture. One of the problems that we have is resonance. Now, resonance, you can't often completely get rid of it, but you can suppress it. The idea is, and as new materials become available, which we're constantly working on this problem, is to how do we get it down further? How do we get it down further? Now, you can make a big, bold step and cut it down by 60%. Well, you've still got 40% of the problem there. Now, can you hear the 60% reduction? Very clearly. But for me, I'm never happy. I'm always trying to think, how many hear that last bit? So RSA is again throughout the overall architecture. One of the first examples of that is in the Mark III system that we've just launched is a clamp, a record clamp. And again, that's not from the audio world, the technology inside that clamp. It comes from a whole different field. George, my business partner at Dohmann, said, look, in the Mark II, you had to look at the clamp. And he said, Mark, we haven't really tackled this problem. It's just a normal clamp. It's just threaded on, and you use it to pressure and you flatten the record. And he said, you need to spend some time focusing on that. And by the way, here's a research paper that I picked up recently from one of our feeds. And when I read that paper, I looked at it and I went, oh, this is interesting. I wonder how. Can we contact them? So we contacted the university and got down to the department, and I said, look, this stuff that you make, can we get some? And they said, well, we can't make much of it. We only make it in really small batches. I said, can we buy that from you? And they said, look, we'll work out a way. So we worked out a way of acquiring this particular material. And then we designed a clamp around it. Now, before designing that clamp, we worked out what the problem was. What was the clamp actually doing, and what could it do if it was improved? And one of the things we noted was the needle in the groove. When you put your ear close to a needle, nothing turned on in the system, you can hear it. You can hear the music. Right, it's an age-old thing. Well, that means that needle's actually making a noise inside the groove. It's talking, it's chattering. And if you use another needle and you drop it in a groove and you listen to that needle electronically, you can hear when that other needle is in or out of the system. So there's vibration going through the LP. So this is after you've done all the work on the platter. You've done all that hard work of making the platter sound good, you're still left with the problem of the needle in the groove. And that's what a clamp can address if designed correctly. So that gave us some insight, and then we had some spindle resonance left. All turntables have spindles that are, you try to decouple it, but it's still there, it's still connected. Even if it's got an air gap, etc. It doesn't float in space magically. So in the top section of the clamp, we put in a series of chambers and another material that one of the guys who works with us said, Mark, I found this incredible, again, it was a research paper. I read it, looked at it and said, oh, that's interesting. Can we get that? So it's a completely different material. And it's a polymer, but it stays really liquid. It's almost runny in its consistency, and that's designed just to address the frequencies that are coming off that spindle. So with George's other business that we had, we've got access to some really amazing test and measurement gear. It's Aladdin's cave. It's just awesome. And that enables us to do heat mapping, laser interferometry, a whole bunch of things that you can't see without these tools. You could imagine that they're there, but this actually quantifies it and gives you some real hardcore data. So yeah, that's part of that process.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So before you started making the Helix, and did you have a set of criteria that you wanted to address when you created it?
Absolutely. So I of course, with the early continuum tables, back in the 80s, the ones with Dohmann and Gusew written on it, you know what we were trying to do. We were trying to improve, the 1%ers. So when you listen to a master tape, so I was fortunate in being able to get hold of a beautiful Studer A80 and through industry contacts get some really high quality 30-inch per second tapes. And I think one of the shows here a couple of years back, we let a rip with that tape machine, and people were blown away with the sound of what a master deck can do. One of the things I noticed was that there was still some signatures left in a lot of analog systems, a bit of a bass hump, a bit of a fullness, a richness there. That's pleasant to the ear, but it's not on the tape. So I know live music is a good reference standard, but really what we're doing is the tape. What the engineer, the producer has put on that tape, we're trying to faithfully reproduce that. Now, if the recording engineer's done his job, or her has done the job well in capturing the information in a live recording, say for instance Mike Valentine, who I've met in the UK, who's doing the Chasing the Dragon series. I've just listened to his latest Scheherazade, featuring a Tasmanian violinist, recorded in a church hall. It's magnificent. It's just awesome. But we're still listening to a tape that's been produced. So that's the thing that we're trying to accurately and with fidelity recapture when we're playing it back. Now we drop a couple of steps through that whole getting the record in your hands. We've heard the tape, we've heard the lacquer that comes off the cutting lathe, first pressing, so you can hear it drop. The thing is you don't want to let it drop any further. Of course. So I think the record player design game or is really trying to prevent it from deteriorating further. There are some techniques that we can do to enhance the sound, to bring it back more towards the tape, but that's a bit more of the black art. So, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. We're now in the third series of the Helix platform. Owners can obviously update their turntables to level 3. Is there already work on the Mark IV underway?
Absolutely.
Any hints on what it might contain?
No.
Have to try.
No. Look, I said before, the materials research is constantly evolving. I mean, we're working with a company that makes bulletproof vests, all right? Because they know about how to dissipate energy, and they're constantly improving and enhancing what they're doing in this energy dissipation world. It's fascinating how that works. we, in the Mark III, accessed a new material that replaced the prior one in the Mark II. And it was clearly audible, right? And including on the measurement tech, just dropped it further again. There's still noise there. It's a lot less. So I'm always looking for ways, and there might be something that I'm doing in the clamp that I might start doing in the arm board, or we're constantly, that's just constantly generating thoughts on how we do that. Belt materials, metallurgy, but within the architecture of the platform, from its get-go, from the original May 2015 launch, it's extensible, which means that I wanted it to be that the fundamental elements of the table are replaceable, and that you can enhance and upgrade without losing the architecture. When we run out of room on the current architecture, like I can't fit that in, then there'll be a new model. But so far, this is now 2015, it's 8 years, and we're at Mark III, and the customers who've done the upgrades absolutely love it. So, and it's preserving their investment. I always liked that about the Lin technology, that they carried you for a long time, being able to upgrade things and not releasing an upgrade every 5 seconds like a mobile phone company. It's not planned obsolescence. This is trying to improve, and if we can improve it and do improve it, then we offer that. And there's customers still running Mark I's. They're very happy, but should they ever wish, they can move to it. In fact, tonight, as you know, I'm getting on a plane to go to the US. A meeting and greeting with a bunch of customers that we have over there, and doing upgrades. We've been working hard over the last couple of months to get everything ready, ship it ahead of time, and we're working with our dealer partners there to help the customers upgrade. And yeah, I'll be able to share that with you when I come back. Yeah.
No, it's very nice. That service that you can provide to even the early customers is important. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you know, it's expensive making investment. You don't want something that the people say, oh, sorry, it's for the scrap heap. But these are heirloom pieces. I always wanted that you should be able to get 50 years out of a table. Yeah. All right? Now, of course, you might change your mind and buy a different table and a different arm and cartridge and everything. Great. But whoever then inherits that product, it should still preserve that value, and so the next owner gets the joy from that. So it's just like the old Commonwealths, you know what I mean? When you get them going, it's a joy. I've seen customers who are building new versions of it with new plinths and everything. It's an immense joy they get from getting the table running again. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be hot rodders out there at one point in the future taking the table apart and saying, I can improve on the motor on this thing, I'll put something new in, or, you know, so, you know, more power to them. It's what we did when back in the early 80s, we were ripping tables apart and finding out how they worked.
For sure. Yeah. Mark, now the tables are made in Australia. Are you finding there's any challenges with the manufacture?
Oh, yeah, it's, somebody asked me, I say it's swimming upstream. Our machining capabilities here, first class, absolutely first class. But it's the finishing trades. So that's surface treatment, and then the surface coating. We have a really good team working with us here. We've gone through some challenging training to get them up to that level. It's interesting, one company, I've been working with them 20 years. They were acquired by another company, and they decided that the work that they were doing for the Joint Strike Fighter project, that our work was too difficult to do. they looked at it and said, this is just too hard to do. It takes way too much care and attention, and it takes up our tanks for the whole period, that we can't build joint strike fighters. So they made a commercial decision to get out of our work. Then we had to find new partners to do that with, again in Melbourne. And I now focus on those smaller boutique companies where you're dealing directly with the owner of the business, and we bring them down to the studio, we show them what the system does, what they're part of, and they say, look, you're a real valued member of our team. It's not the normal, hey, can you do it cheaper? I want it, $5 cheaper on this item, and we don't do that. It's like, hey, what would it take for you to get to this level? Can you do it? Have you got the skills? Have you got the materials handling? We're picking up and dropping off everything. We don't trust couriers. We will not give our parts to somebody to go and drop them off unless that person is one of our team, or I do it myself. So, because they have to be hand carried in specialised containers, foam lined, all those sorts of things. So yeah, if people often don't realise that a $70,000 product is the Helix 2 here, it's 70,000 Australian, and say 105,000 for the Helix 1. Why is it that expensive? Well, if you see the road cases that have to cart the gear between our engineering partners, all Melbourne based, that costs thousands of dollars, and you've got to have enough of them to handle a range of it. So there's a big investment in just that back end support. Occasionally things happen. One of our parts get a nick or a scratch or something on it, and we have to reprocess it. Our partners are understanding of that, and that they do that without getting upset. We don't get upset. We just get on with trying to achieve that. But yeah, it's if you didn't have the thick skin to deal with the challenges, but it's no different. It's a Dart Seal in Switzerland, Swiss made. They got the same problems that they deal with. So yeah, it's just name any manufacturer here, Australian manufacturer. We all have common stories. We do collaborate with like the guys at Chiron Audio, Halcro. We compare, hey, who's a really good supplier of this particular service? I use this guy, go and talk to him. So it's a lot of collaboration that goes where we actually want those machine shops, etc., to be around next year. So giving them a competitor's, quote, competitor's work is actually to our advantage, that we share, because then the overall skill level rises up.
Yeah, good point.
There is a saying, well, why don't you do it all in-house? Why don't you have all your own plating line, and the cost and the OH&S and other parameters, and that somebody else has invested in that. It's better, we feel, to work with the partner on that. But it's made in Melbourne.
Lovely.
So,
yeah, lovely. Two burning questions that have been asked.
Burning questions.
Yeah. Will you have vacuum platters in the near future?
Okay. Yeah, that is a burning question. Yes.
Good.
So, and look, we originally, in fact, if you look at the back of a Mark 1, right, there's a hole with vacuum on it, right? So it's been designed in from the get-go. But we didn't release it because we got really, really busy with the Mark 1 to Mark 2, and then the Helix 2 coming on. So we were literally very, very busy just getting production up and out and servicing the orders, which were healthy. So vacuum is a current project. It's on the bench. We're doing testing. There'll be field testing involved because we're doing a little bit different. It's very easy to have a constantly running pump. just switch it on and let it rumble away. But it creates a signature. So you take that vacuum hose, you put it to your ear, and you can hear it. So does the platter. So I've always felt that having no pump running during playback is the goal. But doing that within a vacuum bearing design means it's got to be a sealed bearing, and that has then frictional issues. So to overcome that, there is one way of doing it, which is very reliable, proven, but it's very, very complex. And so we're not going to do that. We're doing something highly innovative. So when it gets launched, but again, we do have a wall of shame for those ideas that didn't quite make it through to production, and that's encouraged. It's actually encouraged at Dohmann. If somebody has an idea, doesn't matter how far-fetched it is, let's talk about it, let's investigate it, because it could be the seed of something really, really innovative. I love innovation. Here at the show, up in our room, we've got the Helix 2 Mark III, but we're running a super track Tonearm from the UK. It's the best pivot innovation that I've seen in 15 years. It's just brilliant. And the performance, I love it as well. So I love that about audio. When you go into a room at a show and somebody's designed something and come out with something that's, different but good or better. And that's part of the fun of hi-fi as well, that innovation agenda.
Very good. And the second burning question.
That's too.
Will you ever make a Tonearm again?
I have a dream to do that, yeah, absolutely. And I've got a concept that is clear in mind, that came through as a bit of a bolt of lightning, but I have not had the time to address it. As the business grows, we're bringing on staff, which will free up my time more for doing design. What I can promise you, it won't be anything like anything else. So it's not going to be derivative. And pivoted arms, there's such a great choice of pivoted arms at the moment in the market. I wouldn't do a pivoted arm. The pivoted to linear arms out there, like the Reed. There's a Reed 5T. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant architecture. So that's clever. It gets my mind thinking. But yeah, I think we've got enough supply of really great sounding arms at the moment for it not to be a burning problem. I know it's a burning question, but it's not the burning problem. Yeah, the bigger problem is actually building and getting tables out in enough timely fashion. So.
No, for sure. No, thank you, Mark. So your expertise in the analogue side of the hi-fi industry has taken you pretty much everywhere around the world, hasn't it? You've been to shows everywhere, all over the globe, no doubt. And would you think that there'd be a single system anywhere that has given you that thought, wow, that's the best I've ever heard?
Oh, I've heard some crackers. So I call it, George and I talk about this quite often. It's a curation of a sound, right? So the person that you visit has curated this sound in their lounge room or their dedicated room, and each of those sounds is unique. So you got your middle line, which is truth, and you got slightly to the left or to the right of that, but no less enjoyable. So horn systems, I've heard some incredible big horn systems that just gobsmackingly amazing. I've heard amazing dynamic systems, amazing ribbon planar systems, all the amplification choices from tube to solid state, each with merit. And it's that special late night session when you're not listening to gear no more, where it's all of a sudden just the musician communicating with you, and you just can't wait to grab another album and listen to that, because the gear's doing its job. It's transporting you completely into that emotional connection with the artist. And it is possible. If I'm sitting there listening to, oh geez, do you think it's 0.01% fast on that, or do you think it's a little bit? That's analytical brain. It's not enjoying music. That is not having a single malt Lagavulin open fire burning records playing session. So I really think we should strive to work on the emotional connection with our gear, to make that. And those guys who've built those big systems, which you're fortunate enough to visit, each one of them has that ability to connect through. So it's just a different pathway there. So there's no one perfect, this is the only way to get there, to nirvana. There's multiple paths, and they're no less enjoyable, each and every one of them. So I can't say Jacob's got the best system in the world. He's got a very good system. It's mind-blowingly good. But so have some other people who've also been on that journey long enough and curated their systems long enough. And I think one thing I'm learning from Riccardo Franicevici in the UK, and from Harry Van Dalen in Rhapsody Audio in Netherlands, it's about helping people get to that point. It's not about selling 250 watts versus 300 watts, or forget that. And it's been proven time and time again to me that that's the key. It's that emotional connect. Yeah. That's why we're crazy doing this. Is why we spend time breaking things apart and putting them back together again, in that pursuit. It's not rational.
But it's fun.
It's fun.
Indeed. Yeah, thanks. That's a good answer, Mark. Thank you. So when it comes to analogue music reproduction, is there a specific tweak or upgrade that you believe can give us the biggest yield? Could you suggest something to our viewers?
Oh, this is, say if you own a record player, what would you do?
Sure.
And it's not because I've got a clamp, right? But clamps are probably the easiest thing to try and change on your record player, because you don't have to change the arm or the cartridge, and they can make amazing differences to the sounds. So the Helix clamp that we have, the Mark III clamp, is actually available for any record player, should you wish to try one. So, contact your dealer and arrange for an audition of that. Cartridges. Changing cartridges. If you're a moving magnet person, have you tried moving coil? What is all the fuss in the art of the coil? There's people say, well, why would you have two tone arms on a turntable? Well, one mono and one stereo is a logical thing. One moving magnet, one moving coil, or two moving coils, or an optical and a coil. There's such a wonderful world of nuance and flavour and communication and everything, changing a cartridge. And then the next step is the arm. They have a big influence, cables, everything. So I wouldn't say there's one particular thing. The easiest thing would be a clamp, because it means you don't have to do any setup. Fantastic.
When it comes to technology, do you think there's anything that we're waiting for right now that could be a major turning key for the vinyl reproduction?
For vinyl reproduction, I know there's some incredible work being done on the lathe end. Jesus Agnew in Thessaloniki, Greece, is doing some amazing work designing new lathe. It hasn't been done for 50 years. Hot rodding of existing lathes, yes, but not new ground up cutting designs. Torsten Schäffner at Organic Music in Germany, again, hard at work on a new lathe. Using finite element modelling tools So we've been involved assisting on that, completely redesigning the structure of the cutting head where it's mounted, because there's pulsing and vibrating and twisting and torquing that goes on under the cutting process, how to remove that, raise the resonant point above the audio band through stiffening and those sorts of things, new motion control engines. If you looked at the old lathes, they were like an old car. They went well, but we're able to do much better things. So I think what we're going to hear, and anybody who owns a record player will benefit from this new lathe technology coming online in the next couple of years. And then the pressing plants, there's new pressing machines, not the old 1940s machines that are still going. These are new ground-up designs and the vinyl revolution. Look at Melbourne.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going crazy, hasn't it? What do you find to be most exciting or rewarding about working in the global hi-fi industry?
Oh, the people you meet, and the friendships that you make, and the camaraderie. Some of the best laughs you'll ever have in your life, things that happen and shared experience. And one thing that at shows, you got somebody down the hall, something goes wrong, they need help. You say, hey mate, can we help? You know, your phono stage didn't arrive. Hey, we got one, we'll get one, help you out, get you going. So Nordost, many years ago, I was stuck with a wire problem, and Joe from Nordost, and that's why I'm friends with Bjorn, leave it with me, come with me. We went back to the hotel, he opened up a box, he had all these various cables. He said, will this do what you need? Yep, that's perfect. So he didn't have to do that, but he did. So that kind of environment, a collegiate environment, is wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. So finally, we're asking our guests to put forward one question that you'd like to ask the next person who's being interviewed. Can you think of something that you'd like to ask?
What's the best concert performance that you've ever experienced in your life?
That's a good question. Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, on behalf of StereoNET, we'd like to really thank you for your time, for being
thanks,
here
Mark.
and to participate. And it's been really insightful to hear your comments and things that you do with the turntables that many of our viewers want to know about. So we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology that goes into Dohmann audio, and which people don't always appreciate. I just think it's a turntable, but behind the scenes,
it's not just the turntable. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if viewers would like some more information on your turntables, where can they go?
Okay, you can visit Dohmann audio.com, dohmannaudio.com, and take it from there.
Good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you.